Imagine an animal as tall as a giraffe. Now imagine it could fly. This isn't a creature from mythology. This was a breathing reptile that ruled the skies of the late Cretaceous. Its name is Quetzalcoatlus, the largest flying animal of all time. With a wingspan rivaling that of a small airplane and a head longer than a person is tall, it represents one of evolution's greatest paradoxes. It seems to defy the fundamental laws of biomechanics. How could an animal of this sheer size and weight generate enough power to heave itself into the air? How could its bones, hollow and bird-like, withstand the immense stresses of flight without shattering? For paleontologists, Quetzalcoatlus presents a profound mystery. It was a biological contradiction, a creature that simply should not have been able to exist. Unraveling the secrets of this improbable aviator takes us from its shocking discovery in a Texas desert to the cutting edge of science, as we piece together the anatomy and behavior of the undisputed king of the Cretaceous skies. The story of Quetzalcoatlus begins not with a roar, but with a quiet discovery in the sun-baked badlands of Texas's Big Bend National Park. In 1971, a 22-year-old geology graduate student named Douglas Lawson was exploring the Javelina Formation, a layer of rock laid down some 68 million years ago. He wasn't looking for monsters. But then he found a collection of impossibly large, yet incredibly thin and hollow, fossilized bones. They were clearly the remains of a flying animal. Their structure was lightweight and pneumatic, like a bird's, but their scale was simply unbelievable. No known bird, living or extinct, came close. When Lawson brought the bones back to his professor, Juan Langston Jr., the puzzle deepened. They identified the fossils as belonging to the arm and wing of a pterosaur, the group of flying reptiles that lived alongside the dinosaurs. But the calculations they made were staggering. Based on the proportions of smaller, more complete pterosaur skeletons, this new creature would have had a wingspan of over 10 meters, or 33 feet. It was an animal on a scale that science had never even considered possible for a flyer. It seemed more like a dragon from mythology than a real animal. Fittingly, they named it Quetzalcoatlus, after the feathered serpent god of the Aztecs, a deity often depicted as a master of the skies. But this spectacular name was attached to a ghost. The initial find consisted only of bones from a single left wing. There was no skull, no neck, no torso, no legs. The discovery proved that such a titan existed, but it left almost everything about its appearance and life a complete mystery. These first few bones were a tantalizing whisper of the giant that once was. To truly resurrect this creature, paleontologists needed to find more pieces to complete its alien blueprint. As more fossils of Quetzalcoatlus and its smaller, more complete Azhdarchid relatives emerged from the rock, the full, bizarre picture of this sky titan began to take shape. Its anatomy was a masterclass in evolutionary engineering. A body where every feature was ruthlessly optimized to maximize size while minimizing weight. The skull was immense, nearly 2 meters long, but it was a phantom of a structure. It was mostly empty space, a delicate latticework of thin bony struts culminating in a long, sharp, and entirely toothless beak. This beak, likely covered in a sheath of lightweight keratin, was a precision instrument, like a gigantic pair of surgical forceps. Connecting this massive head to the body was a neck longer than that of a giraffe. Yet unlike a giraffe's, it wasn't a column of solid bone and heavy muscle. The neck vertebrae were hollow, thin-walled tubes that interlocked for stiffness, creating a structure that was both incredibly light and remarkably strong. A biological crane arm. This principle of hollow construction extended throughout the skeleton. The bones of its wings and body were pneumatic, filled with air sacs connected to the respiratory system, a trait convergent with modern birds. But its most alien feature was its wings. A bird's wing is an arm covered in feathers. A pterosaur's wing was something else entirely. It was a vast membrane of skin and muscle fiber called a patagium, stretched taut. The leading edge of this wing was formed by the arm and one single, hyper-elongated finger, the fourth digit. Imagine your ring finger growing to be longer than your entire body. The other three fingers remained as small, clawed digits near the wrist, likely used for gripping or walking. It was an anatomy of extremes, a creature of sticks and skin that, on paper, looks impossibly fragile. Which raises the most critical question of all. How did this giant, seemingly delicate animal perform the most violent and energetic part of flight, the launch? For decades, the question of takeoff plagued paleontologists. How could a 250-kilogram animal break the grip of gravity? Early theories were modeled on modern animals. Perhaps it ran to build up speed like an albatross. But its enormous wings, even when folded, would have scraped the ground, making a running start impossible. Did it need to drop from a cliff edge, letting gravity do the initial work? The fossil evidence refutes this. Quetzalcoatlus remains are found in inland floodplain deposits hundreds of kilometers from any plausible cliffside. The mystery deepened, leaving the giant seemingly stranded on the ground. The solution, it turns out, is more radical and ingenious than anyone imagined. The answer lies in a method no living animal employs: a quadrupedal launch. When on the ground, Quetzalcoatlus was not a biped. It walked on four limbs, its two legs, and its two powerful arms, with its massive wing fingers folded safely back and away. This stable, quadrupedal stance was the key to its launch. To take off, Quetzalcoatlus would first crouch, gathering power in its limbs. Then, in a single, explosive movement, it would push off the ground primarily with its immensely powerful forelimbs. The same massive pectoral muscles used to power its wing strokes were used to vault its entire body into the air. It was less like a bird and more like a gymnast launching from a pommel horse. This powerful four-limbed leap would have propelled it several meters into the sky, giving it more than enough clearance to unfurl its colossal wings and take its first powerful downstroke. This revolutionary insight didn't just solve the problem of flight, it fundamentally changed how we view its entire lifestyle. An animal that could launch from a standstill anywhere was not confined to coastlines or cliffs. It was master of the ground as well as the air. The ability to launch from anywhere forced a complete reimagining of the life of Quetzalcoatlus. For decades, artists depicted it as a giant sea-going creature, soaring over primeval oceans and gracefully skimming the surface for fish. But the science simply doesn't support this. Biomechanical studies have shown that the drag on its beak and neck at skimming speeds would have been immense, likely causing catastrophic injury. Furthermore, its fossils are consistently found in terrestrial, inland environments, far from the nearest sea. Quetzalcoatlus was no seabird. The reality is far more terrifying. Freed from the constraints of coastlines, Quetzalcoatlus was a dominant terrestrial predator. On the ground, it strode with an unnerving confidence, its head held high, standing as tall as a giraffe. From this vantage point, it could survey the Cretaceous floodplains and fern prairies like a walking watchtower, its keen eyesight spotting movement from hundreds of meters away. It was, in essence, a supersized stork. Paleontologists have even nicknamed it the stork from hell. Upon spotting a potential meal, a small dinosaur, a mammal, a lizard, or even the hatchlings of larger species, it would stalk forward on its surprisingly capable legs. When it was within range, its long, stiff neck would act like a catapult, snapping its head down with incredible speed. The sharp, formidable beak was not for skimming, but for spearing and snatching. Prey would have been plucked from the ground and swallowed whole. This wasn't an awkward aviator shuffling on land. It was an apex predator in its own right, a creature that treated the ground as its primary hunting domain. And this revolutionary lifestyle wasn't unique. Quetzalcoatlus was simply the largest and last of a globe-spanning dynasty of giants that had already perfected it. This revolutionary way of life, stalking prey on land, was the secret to the success of an entire dynasty of pterosaurs. Quetzalcoatlus was not an anomaly. It was the king of the Azhdarchids, a family of long-necked, large-headed pterosaurs that dominated the final chapter of the age of reptiles. The name Azhdarchid comes from the Persian word for dragon, a fitting title for a group that represents the final and most spectacular flourish of pterosaur evolution. Fossils of these giants have been found across the globe, from North America to Romania, from Morocco to Mongolia, proving they were a widespread and highly successful group. While earlier pterosaurs were often specialized fishers or insect eaters, competing in crowded coastal airspace, the Azhdarchids pioneered a new frontier. They turned their gaze inland, becoming masters of terrestrial ecosystems. This crucial shift allowed them to avoid direct competition with the rapidly diversifying bird lineages that were beginning to dominate the coastlines. They became the apex aerial and often terrestrial predators of the inland floodplains and forests. This family trended towards gigantism. While many were the size of a modern marabou stork, the lineage culminated in true titans like Quetzalcoatlus in North America and the even more robustly built Azhdarchids from Europe's ancient Hateg Island. For millions of years, these were the largest flying creatures on the planet, the undisputed rulers of the sky. They were the last and greatest dynasty of the pterosaurs, a lineage that had conquered the air for over 150 million years. They had reached the absolute zenith of their evolution, but they were reigning over a world on the brink of catastrophe. The flying giraffe, once a biological paradox, is a paradox no more. Quetzalcoatlus was a masterpiece of evolutionary problem-solving, pushing the absolute physical limits of vertebrate flight. Through a combination of hollow bones, a novel quadrupedal launch, and a revolutionary lifestyle as a terrestrial stalker, it achieved a scale that seems torn from the pages of fantasy. It was the ultimate expression of the pterosaur lineage, a true king of the skies. But its reign, like that of the dinosaurs, had an expiration date. 66 million years ago, a catastrophic asteroid impact brought the Cretaceous world to a sudden, violent end, extinguishing the last of these magnificent sky titans forever. If you were captivated by the story of this impossible creature, subscribe for more deep dives into the lost worlds of our planet.